semi-abstract seascape scene in watercolour. Let's get started. And I'm just pulling out some green Apatite Genuine by Daniel Smith, but you could use sap green or mix your own green using a blue and yellow. This is Wet in Wet, and I'm painting using my size 10 round brush. I'm just putting a little bit of French ochre in there. You could use quinacridone gold or raw sienna as well, and just mixing those colours literally in the palette but also on the watercolour paper. I'm now adding a little bit of Paynes grey, quite a creamy mixture, working damp into wet in the foreground there. I'm sprinkling on some table salt while the paint is damp, and I'm going to let that dry naturally. Meanwhile, I'm using a plastic store card cut up, just pulling out this damp paint to create some grasses and textures in the foreground here. I'm using some cerulean blue now, working wet on dry with my size 14 round brush, and just creating sort of horizontal marks there, sort of coming up to the shoreline there. I've gone back using the plastic card now. I've dipped it into some turquoise, and I'm just creating some more marks, damp into damp in the sea area there. I'm using this plastic card as well to create and paint or print even some distant land. I've added a little bit of pink and the blue, the turquoise blue here, and I'm spritzing now with my spritzer bottles. So the colour that I've used to create the distant land is also going to act as the sky as well. It's going to run up into the sky to create a lovely soft sort of violet blue sky there. Using my size 6 brush now with a mix of Paynes grey with a touch of that violet blue colour that I made, working damp into damp and just defining some of the cliffs here, the top of the cliffs, using the green Apatite Genuine, working damp into damp. I'm using a little bit of quinacridone rust here. You could use burnt sienna and some orange as well. I wanted this part of the cliff here to be the focal point, so that colour really stands out. I'm using a little bit more of this yellow here in the distance, working wet on dry, and just finessing the cliffs here using my size 10 brush. I'm literally drawing with the plastic card with some Paynes grey there, just to give some little bit of texture on the cliffs there and the rocks, and just printing with the plastic card here, damp into damp onto the top of the cliffs there, just to define them a little bit more. I'm using the photograph as a reference. I don't want to copy every little detail, and now using my brush just to paint some details on the sort of star of the show here, this orangey sort of cliff here, and just painting and working and softening the marks that I've made, spattering the foreground rocks, working wet on dry to create some texture, to give the illusion of a wave crashing against the rocks, even though it's not in the photograph. I just like to do this, and it also stops me from overworking my paintings. I've also added some white gouache to that violet that I made earlier, and I'm spattering some sort of violet pretty wildflowers as well to finish off my painting. I'm removing the washi tape now to reveal a lovely light border, and I really hope you're inspired to have a go at working in this abstract style using the spritzer bottle and the card, and sort of using a photograph as a reference but going your own way and getting you started in watercolour. Thank you so much for watching. You can find the real-time tutorial link in the comments.